Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I just brought up three quick topics, four quick topics to discuss and kind of related. First one is Flang, which is a piece of work I'm doing with the LLVM.
Wait a moment. Are we streamed now? Is the stream started?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So basically, until now, we have had one Fortran, working Fortran, which is G-Fortran. With Flang, we now have two Fortrans available to us. We had Flang 7 in Buster, but it had to be dropped for Bullseye because it depended on it depended on LLVM 7, and we didn't. And LLVM 7 was dropped from Buster. But Flang has been merged back into the mainstream of LLVM. So I'm looking to build it instead of it being a separate package, to build it directly from there. But the important point, apart from it being a separate compiler, is that it's not ABI compatible. So that means that any applications that build on it need the rest of the Fortran libraries to be built by Flang. And so if effectively a Fortran stack that needs to be built with this. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together a Fortran policy for consideration, where the Fortran libraries will be in a userlib Fortran directory with subdirectories for each version of Fortran. Also, there will be the mod files. So for people who know Fortran, there is pre-compiled headers called mod files. And again, these are different according to which compiler you use. So there's a mod Fortran 10, 11, or 9, 10, 11. I have a mod file version 15. Flang has its mod version numbering system by 34. So it doesn't get incremented. The file format doesn't get incremented every time, but there's a new Fortran library, but it does sort of need to be updated. So the aim is what I'm aim to do is each Fortran library will have a shared library rename, so it'll have -G-Fortran or -Flang at the end of it, and the SO libraries will point to it. Also, the SO version will do the same, so that you can link libraries as necessary accordingly. I've not been testing this all out locally. So now that Bullseye is released, I'm preparing the patches for Flang 14, as it will be, because it's in LLVM 14 snapshot. I'm preparing that. There's about 10 Fortran libraries that would need to be updated, that would need to be processed in this manner, and on the order of 100 Fortran apps that would be built against them. And to make all of this work, I have a Fortran helper file, a DH-Fortran helper. So I'm looking for feedback on this when it's all finished. The second part I was looking at was Openmpi and Singularity. So Singularity container is a Docker-based container that we use for HPC systems. And we use it as I check the Irish Centre for High-End Computing, where we work it on our main system, and it's available in many HPC systems around the world. Typically, large supercomputers and HPC systems use a commercial Linux because they need kernel support. So it's either SUSE or CentOS are the typical choices, and then they get they don't use Debian as the Linux alternative because when you've got a multi-million-euro machine and you need uptime, you need commercial back support for the kernel, and they don't think there's a sufficient market there for HPC for Debian. However, within the Singularity containers, you've got a portable environment, and Singularity containers enable you to wrap containerize a full operating system implementation into 3 or 4 gigabytes. Wrap it around your application, develop it on a laptop or other environment, test it there, and port and execute it as a container under MPI, Slurm, etc. in on a HPC machine without needing root. I've successfully demonstrated this with Openmpi from Debian containers, and we do this at my work at iCheck with Openmpi and in particular with Openmpi 4. What this means is that we can use the same Debian containers for scaling to, we can effectively, where Debian was only used in a handful of places such as French, CNOS, etc. Before for in HPC, it can be the base system for large numbers of exascale tasks, and we can potentially push Debian, be using Debian for that purpose. So where people need to build a large scientific software stack, Debian actually becomes an automatic choice. And we will start seeing Debian containers. We can potentially start seeing Debian being used fairly trivially on the tier 0 machines across Europe in the near future. And so we should be preparing for this and testing out Openmpi configure and its stack configurations like PMI for processor scaling UCX. To ensure that we can scale to exascale workflows. That becomes relevant when we come to the next piece of the work which I've been doing at work, which is I've been working on NWP, weather forecasting and climate models. And these have very complex workflows. So it's quite normal for a large weather center to run several thousand jobs in a workflow, a mixture of MPI jobs and serial jobs and GPU jobs on different clusters, scheduled across a machine. And the placing and managing of where the data goes on those has become more and more complex over time. And the scale of our jobs, when we're looking at our jobs, it becomes challenging. So I'm looking at a large model. I'm using the EC-Earth as a climate model, which has on the order of 5 to 10 executables in it, hundreds of files, file types when it starts up, and a large software stack, including NetCDF built on HDF5, built on MPIO. And these machines now have a very complex hardware environment where in terms of they have scaling where they may have local nodes with non-volatile memory, supplying some part of the file system, SSDs, hard drives, tape, and then connecting onto clouds, S3 storage, burst buffer, and so on. So when we're running with these, where we place our files becomes important. We can typically have scratch files. We'll have local SSD on our particular machine, and a large fraction of my daytime job has been tuning the scripts that execute our tasks to work on these on individual systems. So that means tuning the size of MPI writes, so that the MPI tuning the size of writes of files, so that the I/O path is as fast as possible out to disk. Matching that with the file system that's on the particular machine, setting environmental variables to set the Lustre file system block size underneath, so that the TCP stack or I/O stack all the way through to the disk is optimally configured. To make all of that work, a group in the Easy Waste European Horizon project has been working on a thing called OutSystem middleware, which is a piece of middleware to manage these large applications. And it will be called out by optimized versions of these components to find out what the appropriate settings are for each machine and for the task that does. And it will do things where it will execute the tasks. A scheduler like Silk CYLC will pre-place the jobs, pre-place the data files in the appropriate file systems. It will set the components for MPI for writing to the appropriate values. When it's writing, typically NetCDF is used, but a hacked NetCDF that uses the ESDM namespace will write to Earth System middleware. And the Earth System middleware basically has a NetCDF-like data model for what the file object, what the data objects look like when they're writing them out to disk. So from a programmer's perspective, somebody writing a weather model, etc., doesn't see any difference. They just see NetCDF file. It's just got the ESDM prefix in its namespace. But in practice, what happens is when you're running on a parallel system, working on thousands of nodes, each node will be writing directly to, say, to ESDM, which will write it out as to an appropriate format for the underlying hardware. So, for example, ESDM NetCDF can manage an S3 cloud as a NetCDF object, and it presents to the programmer a NetCDF as if it's a NetCDF file. But in practice, all of the blocks of data that get written out from the modes that are executing our weather job are written out directly as S3 objects to the S3 cloud and coordinated to make it look like a NetCDF file. All of this is done transparently to the user, and the machine, but it's very optimized for the given piece of hardware. And to make that work, there's a ESDM looks at ESDM.conf, which determines what kind of machine they have in front of them, what file systems are things like a POSIX file system or a Lustre file system or an S3 file system or different kinds of optimized hardware, and runs backends for this ESDM when it's writing out the software to do this. We can then do all of this within Debian by putting ESDM inside one of the containers that we're running our jobs on in Debian. And we can ship a version that will, so a job that can run within an MPI job on 3 or 4 cores on a laptop at a certain speed can scale automatically to a tier 0 machine like Lumi running on 10,000 cores, 100,000 cores, 10,000 nodes with GPUs with a very complex clustered file system to do all of this. To make that work, we need to be using parallel NetCDF. Now, our main version of NetCDF in Debian is the serial build. And the point being that NetCDF, unfortunately, has two alternate sets of builds, a serial or a parallel. And the reason for that is historical, but basically you can only run compression in NetCDF for file if it's serial because of the way it treats the underlying file as a series of bytes. So you either use compression and you get a serial build and you get compression as an option, or you use parallel builds and you don't get a compression as an option. And for most of our purposes, the serial one is the right to do. But if you get a very complex NetCDF stack, eventually something gets linked to both. And in the case that I've explored, it's PowerView plugins. So you can either end up, some of them PowerView plugins will be linked to NetCDF to a parallel version. Some will be linked to, will require a parallel version. Some will be linked to a serial version for reading a compressed file. I've solved that with the parallel NetCDF, which is in Buster at the moment, which I'd like to merge back into the main NetCDF build. I need to get a couple of patches through upstream for this. This is done by using distinct NetCDF SO names and symbol namespaces. But my NetCDF parallel build is built with the ESDM support. ESDM at the moment is preparing for upload into for Bookworm. So this then would basically enable large-scale parallel NetCDF writes on and large-scale models to be run with weather codes and weather and climate codes, and make Debian the best potential environment for the NetCDF for the client for the community. Thanks. So I'd like comments and from anybody on what they think about this. I stop sharing. Okay.
It's impressive.
Yep. Thanks, Alastair, for the overview. I wonder if I see some names here in the Jitsi room, which I don't know. It is maybe sensible to have a very short introduction of everybody, maybe including a camera view to see each other. So, yeah, this is Diane. I know her name from several contributions. Gisela is also new. Well, let's start with a short introduction. My name is Andreas Tille. I'm a physicist by profession, working on Debian Med, and have done something with the start of Debian Science, but I'm not very active in the science, just if I need some packages. I hand over the ball to Diane, and so you can do some short introduction. You are muted, or you seem to be muted. At least we can't hear you. Maybe something with your microphone. Now you have a clear muted sign on your Jitsi. Maybe I hand over to Gisela, and do you try to fix your microphone in between? Hope I pronounce your name correctly.
Pardon me. No,
you are muted. You are also muted.
So yes, it was correct. So Gisela is my nick, and I just started, getting near Debian again. I work in the Forschungszentrum Jülich, and I will be at some point packaging for NeuroDebian. So I wanted to get back into the Debian world.
Oh, NeuroDebian is very interesting. So you are following Michael and Jaroslav
exactly
in footsteps. So I would love if you also would write some short introduction on the Debian Med mailing list, because we are dragging everything into Debian Med, what was formerly NeuroDebian.
Okay, see, I will do.
So Michael and Jaroslav are aware of this, and yeah, it would be good if we do some. Maybe you join the next BoF in the very late evening in Germany. So
yeah, no, it's not that late. I will try to stay awake.
Okay. So maybe you hand over to somebody else. You want to hear an introduction?
Yes, then I will give the ball to Anton. Who is not on camera?
I'm afraid Anton has a weak connection. He is organizing the BoF, but he wrote that he has a very weak connection.
Oh, okay. Then I will say Stefan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andreas kind of brought me in as a computer scientist and bioinformatician some 15 years ago or so. So mostly Debian Med and science packages whenever they are encountered by some data handling library or tool. Other interests are in Boink that I maintain in Debian. So yeah, there are some overlaps, but whatever goes. Yeah, Paolo. Introduction from Paolo, please.
Paolo is moderator, I think. He is
moderator.
Yeah, I'm just bored.
Hello. Emmanuel. It's just kind of following the order here on my screen. So,
yeah.
Emmanuel, you're muted if you're saying something.
I think we have not heard from Sridhar Gautam. Probably my.
Yeah, I am Sridhar. I'm a plant physiologist working at Bangalore in the Indian Institute of Horticulture Research. I use Ubuntu, then I know about the Debian, and then I was looking at how for the Debian Science. So I saw so many packages and much work is being done. So I just wanted to learn, and maybe sometime in point of life I can contribute. I'm not from a programming or a computer background, but I don't know how I can be part of this. But I love to be part of this Debian for Science group. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You can be part of this by just testing the package we are using and filing bug reports if something is wrong.
Okay,
This
yes.
is perfectly welcome, this contribution.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, nice to hear you. Ah, we can even see you. Okay.
Yeah, hello. I'm sorry, I was organizing this meeting, but I have a very weak connection right now because I'm traveling. May I introduce myself, or I'm just...
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just shortly, I'm Anton Gladky, and I am part of this team, and I'm trying to package some packages here. And yeah, I'm very glad that our team is relatively active, and we are always friendly for other people. So yeah, feel free to join us.
I think Anton don't know who is spoken. Doctorans, is this a right pronunciation? Please correct me.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi. So I'm Doug. I'm a mathematician. I'm at Piedmont University in Georgia in the United States, and I've been helping out with Debian Science for like 5 or 6 years, I think. And I only recently became a Debian maintainer, so now I can finally upload some of my own packages. And I think a number of you have sponsored many of my packages over the past few years. So thank you for all that support. But yeah, I'm primarily interested in math software. I'm also one of the upstream contributors to Macaulay 2, which is a big software in algebraic geometry and commutative algebra. And so I recently packaged that for Debian. So that's kind of my primary interest is Macaulay 2 and sort of adjacent, its dependencies and stuff.
Yeah, to say the truth, Doc is uploading more and more, and he is rising in the statistics of the number of uploads more and more, and he will beat me soon. That's cool. I always love if somebody beats me in the number of uploads. This is my favorite thing to see.
Yeah.
So we had Michael de Sousa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I am a teacher in a college here, local college, and I've been using Debian and all the science tools for a long time. This is the first time on DebConf, so I decided, I'll just join some meeting and see what is basically going on and get some idea of how things work. I've been almost 15, 20 years I've been using Debian and all the science tools, though I have not contributed anything, but I just said that let me see how it works.
Yeah. I think last one is Etienne Moyer.
Yep. Hi. So I'm an IT working for the Compagnie Générale de Géophysique, and otherwise I'm mostly active in Debian Net, sometimes in other teams as well.
Yeah.
And Diane can also try to introduce herself.
Did I fix my mic?
Yes. Great.
Okay. I picked the wrong option in Firefox when I joined the meeting. I have a computer science degree and got through part of a physics degree. I work at Caltech doing bioinformatics and providing system support. I've used Debian for a really long time, and at some point realized I should actually contribute and started doing packages, although the pandemic has really slowed down my ability to actually contribute much right now. Anything else that I should... Oh, I've been involved mostly... I started in KDE, but then got frustrated with KDE. I do a lot of work in Python and have been contributing to Debian Med some since we do bioinformatics.
4 people from Debian Med here. Cool. Well, I include now Akshita, and then we are 5, and we are close to half of the people here. That's cool. Okay.
I do sometimes have physics envy. Like the NSF is much better at providing support for computer hardware than the NIH is. So like the climate modelers and the astronomers have much better computers and much better support for providing system administration and paying for hardware and all the other like really nice, like, you need to process a lot of data capabilities.
Yeah, cool. It's nice to see faces behind people now, because I've seen a lot of contributions of you, and it's good to know each other. So, are there any questions to the short introduction given by Alastair? Do we want to discuss anything, or do we want to discuss topics on Etherpad? I think Steffen has written a lot of items there.
Yeah, I just took some freedom to kind of just drop whatever I kind of like. Could you please make a pick and moderate it?
So do you want to comment something on this?
So I missed that.
Well, in the Etherpad, there are...
Yeah, look at that.
I think many of us have, or at least I have opinions about singularity.
Okay.
It would be nice to have a smaller base image of some kind. The way Singularity works for you, you can either import from somebody else's base image, or if you're paranoid, you can start importing from a Deb Bootstrap. But Deb Bootstrap is kind of slow and includes a lot of stuff that's not really relevant for a container. And it might be nice to have some kind of like more minimal Deb Bootstrap environment.
Yeah, I think so. That would be a good. It would be a good point.
But that can't be so difficult to kind of get done, right? So who would be most knowledgeable about this? Who should we ask? Just application to the Bootstrap, or do we need something else?
We could check with the Debian Cloud team. You know, they've done this for other containers. We could see what a minimal container should look like for those.
I was in their BoF yesterday, and they seem to be very open and look for overlaps.
Yeah.
So we should just pick someone who does the communication then. Who will contact them?
That's answer a good question, but I think they would start as a couple of options to include or exclude packages. It's even possible to exclude packages from the listing to alter the base image. Although I'm not necessarily sure of the implications.
I was tempted to just unpack libc, depackage, apt, and their immediate dependencies and put it in a container and see what happened. Yeah.
I mean, you end up with, you do frequently end up trying to build a large container, which there's a bunch of tools that get used with Debian installer that were written way back when that will produce a stripped down version of files that are built for UDEBs. They might be useful if you're building, if you know you're executing a particular executable, iterating over the libraries to slim down the versions. Those might be useful for containers. You could push those through.
Okay.
On the hardware, somebody pointed out maybe you should invest in hardware that's not your mainstream. That would be a good idea, I think. I mean, I'm thinking that some of the stuff that would be useful would be if we could actually get Intel to sponsor things like a Movidius Myriad chips, you know, with the GPUs or AI chips, etc. And we're doing a lot of work these days where we're developing machine learning versions of our main codes. So that kind of hardware is beginning to appear on machines. It would be useful to have that on the Debian machine. There's a challenge
for building, or would it be for just login machines, or both? Right.
Mostly, For building mostly, I think, building Portabot. I mean, some of it's going to be a challenge with open source libraries, etc.
It might be non-free then, so we have the non-free auto builders. This would then mean that we'd have an auto builder that, would then know that that builder is the one, right? So we would need some kind of dependency.
Yeah.
It's only kind of available on that kind of machine. But that sounds, I don't know if that is doable, right? Of course, all the builders are equal, right? Except for the non-free builders, of course. But
I've not used a non-free builder. I've built Singularity containers that have the Debian base and then pulled in Intel debs into it, Intel packages.
Oh, okay.
This is Intel have an AI chip called the Myriad, and we've done work with those. And they've got their software and compiler on it, which is, I think, non-free, but we've used that at work. But it would be worth expanding the range of such hardware, because I suspect we're going to end up with a large amount of AI hardware on our main work computers, and Debian development would be hindered, I think, if we, most of the work we could do could be Debian, and it's kind of, we end up doing a lot of work building a software stack, and we end up in various places, and Debian is just better at it. When for our main science software stack, it's 7 or 8 deep in many applications, and that's a lot of work. Speaking for somebody who's working for a HPC center, rather than building large complex software stacks, our future is probably going to be either be containerized in some form, and getting people building something like Singularity, and us helping the Singularity world, I think, would be quite good.
Okay, so I think we have now 2 things that we might want to summarize for some sort of kind of minutes. So we would like to have a petition to forward to someone to have this kind of special hardware acquired or donated by someone, that then turn into build machines or in some way. Most likely also be integrated in some sort of automated testing machines. And again, the question is like, where do we put this? Andreas, are you taking minutes by chance or something?
Can you repeat, please?
Just question is like, how do we kind of proceed with our discussion? Like, if we would have someone to take kind of notes, and that we then forward these notes to the community at large. This might be helpful, I thought.
We have notes in the Etherpad and should write down there everything that should be distributed, I think.
Okay. So the first point would then be that we ask, or that we kind of prepare some sort of suggestion, petition, whatever you want to call it, that we get the more diverse set of hardware that is used for accelerated computing in various forms. I think this kind of concurs with what the machine learning groups kind of want, right? So that they can build software, train software, and test software on that kind of hardware. Okay, and the second point, what I think that is kind of congruent with what the Debian Med community has, is that we have workflows that are complex, and that we need ways to make these kind of workflows easily deployable. And for that, we suggest Singularity. And I think we have the same kind of concern, where we have workflows and we also have public data of some sort, and we want to bring them together, and some Singularity or cloud solutions is kind of very natural. Okay, I can formulate the second point, but I can't formulate the first point because I don't know the kind of particular kind of hardware.
How do you get write permissions for the Etherpad?
On the top right, there's a button. And click that.
Okay. and it has me logged in as a read-only guest.
Debian
That would be the
single
difference.
sign-on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I would have loved if Mosu would have joined our meeting and would have said something to artificial intelligence and yeah, you hopefully. Oh, sorry. Wait a moment. Can someone take over?
I was wondering if there should be an option for, to indicate for
It
auto
was.
packages.
Sorry, it was a real life phone call. Yeah.
No worries.
What I wanted to say is, I think we should. Is everybody aware that we have a Debian AI team, and that there is something done on TensorFlow and so on? And is there anything we could contribute? In my opinion, the manpower behind this team is not high enough, and we need to do more. So everybody who is somehow involved into packages which are using TensorFlow also and has some spare cycles could please support this team a little bit.
It is. I've not tried building TensorFlow in Debian. Google's build tools battle have been really painful in non-Debian world to build packages. So if that's the tool that's needed, it's quite challenging.
Yeah, challenging, but yeah, we are here for challenges, right? We are not for the easy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, they have partially ported Bazel to Debian, so they're going. And I think from what Wookie has said, I think they're almost there, right?
Yeah, somehow we are. I think it's realistic to assume that in the next release we have some kind of working TensorFlow. Maybe I'm over optimistic, but with a really good push that we have the Bazel build system now. But we need testing, we need people helping out and checking, and so it would be really good to, if you know somebody to make some noise, this would be also a really nice thing.
But this leads to another concern of mine. Do we make enough kind of promotion about Debian Science in the Debian community? Does everyone know about Debian Science? Yeah, that's not like what can we change to improve that. And also, like, if we now say we want more machines to be bought, you know, right, they will ask, like, okay, who's that? Like, how many users do we have? And how many developers do we have to contribute to Debian Science? There will be many questions asked if the investment into these machines are valuable for the project as a whole. And
I think not. I mean, this is why one of these I'm advocating the singularity, because basically we can reuse the developments that we're doing on the hardware we basically do our big jobs on. But there are other communities we should be talking to. I think OpenHPC, I've talked to them once or twice at ISC, it's supercomputing, etc. But we haven't formally linked with them. You know, there's the other SPAC type communities where the people are building SPAC packages, etc. for HPC systems, or reinventing the whole world, which is Anaconda. You know, we basically point out to people that you've got an increasingly deep scientific stack, and you know, most of that is already built, and there's a very good auto package and testing infrastructure for that science stack in Debian, and it's kind of a waste of effort to be repeating it in the OpenHPC SPAC type world.
There's a difference with something like Anaconda. It shares similarities with Nix and GUIX in that keep all of the variant libraries around, so you can actually do more reproducible computing where you can pull in random ancient versions of packages to get the same versions of everything, which is harder to do with Debian. You actually have to go to snapshots and pull those things in, and you may not actually have an easy way of generating the same environment. Although if you keep your Singularity container around for a long time, that would work, but you can't easily, you may not easily be able to rebuild the same Singularity container, which you can more easily do with Anaconda. On the other hand, maintaining all of those libraries means that Anaconda is getting increasingly slow as they have to search through a giant list of packages to install stuff.
Well, that was the outreach to other groups outside of Debian. But within Debian, are we prominent enough?
I don't think so that we are prominent enough. But this thing is, in my opinion, Debian Science always was something where we can focus on those sciences that do not have their separate blend, right? We have one prominent split off, which is Debian Astro, which was grown out of Debian Science. And I personally would love to see some Debian Math, Debian Physics, Debian something we don't have, and in Debian Science only care for general stuff like tools, infrastructure, maybe containerization and such stuff, which is used in all sciences, right? So scientists should find us, meet here, find friends, and do their own more focused projects, because I think Debian Science in general is too big, right? We could have Debian meteorology, right? And something like this, and then you get all meteorologists or whatever who are using Debian in one group. I'm not sure if this works. It worked in this specific case of Debian Astro. The other sciences like Debian Med or DebChem or Debian GIS existed before or in parallel to Debian Science. But this, I would love if we get this kind of umbrella split off into different blends, which are more focused in specific topics. Right.
How important is education to you all? I mean, part of what drives me in Debian is the idea that we kind of reach out to, let's say, school kids who want to learn about physics, biosciences, meteorology, whatever. And when I keep mentioning about tutorials that I want to kind of package in Debian for our workflows now, part of what I see is like what Drupal is doing. That we have a workflow problem in or data in, and to get out sometimes it is published somewhere. And is this important to you, or is that something completely off?
I don't know.
There's several workflow engines. I was going to say there's several workflow engines in Debian already.
Yeah.
Technically that's fine. It's about the education point, that you start out with a simple project that could be used by students of all kind of ages, basically. I consider myself a student. Whenever I learn something new, then I'm a student of something. And so in that philosophy, I would just like to be kind of established, and we would use that as a proportion of Debian at the same site.
Yeah. I mean, one of the good things about what we do is basically all of the agreed science, shall we say, or software can end up in Debian, and only our day-to-day stuff where we're working. In my own case, for example, in WP climate, the climate model is not going to end up in Debian, but I've got about 20 or 30 executables in the stack below that now are. And we basically, these are mostly in maintenance mode or in the hands of computer scientists rather than in the hands of domain scientists and working on them, things like NetCDF. etc. And that, you know, so it does make it easier for students to start with that. I think you mentioned one word that's kind of useful: reproducibility. You know, that's become a touch point in times in our science where we have challenges with parallel software getting the same results and what it means. You know, and the fact that we have teams investing so much effort in making sure that the software builds are reproducible is a very big deal. You know, we can point to a reliable software stack below the stack, and you know, and a chain of testing that goes into making sure that that works. And I think we should use that as a starting point.
I'm not sure.
I was thinking about the education component. Where there is a tradition of overlapping between science and education. So is there some reason to talk with Debian Edu about what kinds of environments would make better tools for classrooms? Like, to use LIGO as an example, they had a period where they did Jupyter notebooks to show off their method for detecting the gravitational wave. And in theory, a lot of that could be available in Debian.
I like the idea to reach out to Debian Edu. I must admit, I have basically tagged them with a potato head or whatever thingy. But yes, in a way, they would know better, right? Like how to position something like this, support to be found, and not to ask too much for whatever age group.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I'm not sure if Paolo gave the sign some minutes ago that we have 4 minutes left. So if you need to say some last words for the BoF, something that's really important.
I have to rush. Fire alarm! Someone's drowning the body.
So some real life stuff is always involved in these meetings. So yeah. Yeah. So Paolo said we have some more minutes because there is no activity that we should respond to, some questions to answer. So I've seen some other people showing up here, but they've vanished again. Yeah. To ask Joe directly, because you are a mathematician, what do you think about the Debian Mathematics project?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense. You know, there's a fair amount of math software in Debian. So yeah, I mean, if we were to splinter into multiple different offshoots of Debian Science, math definitely seems like a natural choice. I'd be happy to be part of that.
We also have several mathematicians I'm aware of, so I think this would be a cool project, because in Debian Science we have this just one task, Science Mathematics, which is more or less throw everything in, but this could be made a little bit more structured in a separate set of meta packages or something like this. Maybe you could think about this, if this could be helpful for your users, and if you, even more importantly, could win more developers and users for this project. It's not for you alone, but my experience with Debian Med was that I started alone, and I was alone more or less the first 2 or 3 years, and then people joined the project, and then it became flying, and now it's very living project. As you see, we have 4 people dedicated to Debian Med, and maybe that also Gisela will consider herself a member once she might work on the Debian, on the Neuro Debian stuff inside Debian Med. So it takes some time, but then you get more people than if you are kind of hidden in Debian Science, right? So, but you need to be aware that you need a lot of advertising about it. I have on every DebConf I have a Debian Med talk, and not so many people will join this in the first place. But yeah, it's developing, and I see way more chances for mathematics than for. Well, not way more chances, but at least similar chances for mathematics to fly high in the Debian world.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, something else. Francisco, do you want to say something? You are muted somehow. Either not visibly muted, but your mic is not working. You can ask Diane. Diane, she solved the issue. Maybe she can solve the issue for you as well. Maybe the pulse audio settings can help here. Diane, greetings to your daughter or whoever it is behind you. She can wave into the camera. That's fine. Hi. Well, Debian is also about people, right? It's not only about packaging. So, Francisco, were you able to solve your mic problems? Or we had also some R Lauer from the name, I guess it's some kind of first name R and Lauer. It sounds German to me, but he went away. Anton Gladky is somewhere in the offline world. I'm checking the Etherpad. Nothing new, nothing visibly new.
I have another question that's very simple. Where can I find the URL for the Debian Med BoF that's coming up in a couple hours?
Well, you can ask me. I can post it here. I would have posted it somewhere, but wait, I will do this soon. And now I need to find it myself.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I hear a voice.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I don't really have anything of importance to add. I just want to know, I've been using Debian for over 20 years, and I've done my undergraduate studies and my master's thesis and my PhD thesis on Debian. And I have a PhD in physics, and I've been wanting to join the science team for a long time, but I didn't feel I was prepared because it's a really important activity. And I have a few packages already in Debian now, and I'm looking forward to joining the team and collaborating as much as I can. I just want to say hi.
Cool. Yeah, so I've posted the Debian Med BoF URL here. I will also repeat this in IRC in the Debian Med mailing list, and I will also write it in Etherpad of the, so everybody who wants to join should find it. I think it's this year's DebConf is not so well organized like last year, I have the impression. I don't know why, but so people have not so much power anymore to do online conferences. I'm not sure, but I think last year we were better in propagating this information. Maybe it's also me in the Debian Med team, because I have now in my house now here is my now 2 adopted daughters and my adopted granddaughter from Vietnam. We have some time. This is because it's a Debian story. I give you a link to one of my talks. It's kind of a fun. It is because Debian is about people, as I said. I just post a link here. You can watch this video afterwards if you have some time. And the young woman I introduced there is now living in my house since 1 week, and so here's a lot of fun in this house, and it will distract me from Debian a little bit. Okay. Yeah, but I think
children can be very time consuming.
Yeah. So Michael said, thank you very much for the discussion. Yeah, you're welcome. Everybody who has joined. I would have loved to learn about more people, but yeah, it's fine to see some new faces. It's important, and maybe we will find in the Debian BoF some more people, and I'm not too sleepy then. And yeah, from my point, we can end this session here. And see you next time, hopefully in real life.
Hopefully in real life in Kosovo.
Yeah.
Take care. I have to go.
Life.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you.